He's trying everything he can to revive the lost honor of his family. He's traveling the world to study different philosophies of detainment from scratch. By visiting various police departments around the world, he has a lot of dedication. He's still just a rookie cop, but I sense a strong grudge of some sort from him. The guy's more useful than Gumshoe, even if he is rude. Well, he sure has a lot of guts to come to this country and give prosecutors a hard time. I agree. However, I can think of one young lady that statement also applies to. Anyway, what was that agent looking for, Detective Baird? Earlier, that little girl was poking around in lobby number 1 as well. Like I said before, it's got nothing to do with the two of you. I highly doubt that it has nothing to do with me. Fine. If this is the game I must play, then I will take this opportunity to draw out what's been hiding and what's happened in this room straight from him. Earlier, you were in lobby number 1, and now you're here in lobby number 2. You are quite the busy man, Detective Baird. Multiple returns to a crime scene brings about success. That's what we detectives say. I see, in that case, you wouldn't mind if I asked about what happened again, correct? I don't have anything left to say to you, boy. Boy, you'll see. We'll draw my answer from you one way or another. Would it kill you to help us even a tiny bit in our investigation? I gave Faraday's notebook to the judge earlier. That's help enough, don't you think? Please, we are asking you for just a bit more of your cooperation. Don't push me, kid. So if I actually presented the Yatagarasu's key, does he know about it? Detective Baird, did you know of the existence of the item in this photograph? Of course I did. It's my job to know everything related to the Yatagarasu case. In that case, let me ask you something. Did you know that the knife that killed Mr. Faraday and this Yatagarasu's key are one and the same? What? That's impossible. It looks like he didn't know after all. This piece of evidence, which we call the Yatagarasu's key, is actually a well-camouflaged knife. Mr. Faraday was planning to use this Yatagarasu's key to prove that Mr. Rell was not the real Yatagarasu. Isn't that correct? I guess so. However, Mr. Faraday had no idea that it was, in fact, a knife. Yeah, I have to admit, neither one of us knew that fact. And if neither one of us knew, then no one in law enforcement knew either. How did we miss something as big as this? I noticed that since a little while ago, you appear to be searching for something. I presume that this key is what you were searching for. Yeah, that's right. Then why were you searching for it? Because I promised Faraday. I promised that I'd protect that key with my life. But after he was killed, the key disappeared from Faraday's evidence bag. Who would have thought that the key is what took Faraday's life? Detective Baird, so that we may find the truth, please testify for me once more. Alright. But it doesn't matter how many times I tell you about what happened. Nothing will change. So, time of the murder. Detective Baird, I ask that you please testify once more for what happened in lobby number 2 and what you experienced in lobby number 1. My answer is still the same. And this is the last time I'm going to do this. That's fine, because I only need this one last time to clear everything up and find the truth behind this case. Okay. Detective Baird's movements. I was in lobby number 1 talking with you. We were talking about some trivial things. I heard the gunshot right before the trial was about to reconvene. When we heard it, you and I immediately dashed into the hallway together. I saw Gumshoe goofing around there, and then we all ran into lobby number 2. Okay. Sounds like the exact same story he told us before. Indeed. However, I feel that we have yet to draw out all the information that we can. Indeed. I just press everything. Why did Miss Yu choose lobby number 1? Answer me. Who knows? She just said that she had something she wanted to talk to me about. And we walked into lobby number 1 together, that's all. So his answer remains the same as before, I see. I was hoping you would expand on what exactly you were discussing with Miss Yu. Trivial stuff. It was nothing important. That's for me to decide. Alright, I suppose that's for him to decide. Moving on then. Until you heard the gunshot, did you not notice anything else that was out of the ordinary? I didn't hear any other strange sounds until that gunshot. If the gunshot Detective Bad heard was really the one from the murder, that would give that other piece of evidence an entirely different meaning. I ask that you please amend your testimony with that statement just now. Sure. So what you're saying is you did not ever hear a balloon popping. Detective Bad, does this balloon fragment remind you of anything? It's the same colour as the one Kay was holding. Oh, so you knew about that girl's balloon? Yeah, I was sitting with her up until the up in the gallery. During the recess, just before we split up, I filled that balloon up for her. Well, as you may have already surmised, this piece did indeed come from Kay's balloon. So, what about the balloon? I wonder if you might remember hearing this balloon pop at some point. What are you getting at? This fragment was found in the hallway right in front of lobby number 2. Furthermore, it was the sound of this balloon popping that the judge mistook for a gunshot. Oh? So the sound that the judge heard was not actually a gunshot, huh? On top of that, His Honour said that he heard the balloon pop, about 20 minutes before the trial was about to reconvene. Yes, which means that His Honour heard the balloon pop in the hallway. When you were in lobby number 1, Detective Bad, and if you were in lobby number 1 at that time, you were close enough that you should have heard the balloon popping as well. So? What? Don't give me a so. We just proved that there is a flaw in your testimony. The crackling of the truth is louder than the sound of your sweet naivete cracking. And since you kids don't seem to know, let me fill you in on something. Did you ever stop to think why the doors and walls of this place seem so rugged? That's because they were designed to keep secrets from being leaked. What is that supposed to mean? The doors and walls are super thick. The window panes are double layered. To top it all off, even the curtains are made of a special sound absorbing material. Then you mean... Since I was shut up inside lobby number 1, there was no way I could have heard that sound. No. I knew that's what he was going to say. And that means that Scruff-Face's testimony is completely useless. If the rooms are soundproof, then of course he wouldn't hear any sign of a struggle. That's also why it's only natural that I didn't hear the balloon popping. Now do you get it, kids? Miles, I thought we were supposed to be the ones finding flaws in his logic. Not the other way around. The other way around? It's not possible to hear the sound of a balloon popping if one were in lobby number 1. However, if we examine the situation in reverse, the person standing in the hallway should not be able to hear the real gunshot either. And yet Detective Gumshoe claims to have heard it while he was standing in the hallway. Detective Bad, if that is the case, how exactly did you hear the gunshot? What do you mean, how? I just did. It would appear that you have yet to realise a contradiction in your own words. Oh? How so? If the rooms are as soundproof as you say they are, then how did the sound of a gunshot enter your ears? I see what you mean. I guess I'm more out of it from Faraday's murder than I had thought. Which means what exactly, Miles? In the end, what does it all boil down to? It boils down to this. There must be a reason as to how Detectives Bad and Gumshoe heard a gunshot they theoretically couldn't have. It looks like we need to examine the state of the crime scene again, huh? The state of the crime scene? Wait, can it be? It's that ultra-strong perfume you wears. She spilled some of it. So an open window in lobby number 1 was... Wait. I am not reading this right at all. Dissipating the smell. A window in lobby number 1 was open to allow the perfume misuse spill to dissipate. Way too noisy. Lobby number 2's television, it looks like it was set to an incredibly high volume. The surveillance video. How could a piece of evidence just disappear? Where did it go? Oh. Where did the surveillance tape from Mr. Faraday's bag disappear off to? Oh. So, lobby number 2's window, a very loud television. Oh wait, no. Dissipate the smell. There we go, that one was open. Yeah, the scent of flowers is in the air. It's simply not possible for the killer to have escaped through barred windows. And yet, the fragrance of the perfume managed to escape from defendant lobby number 1. Of course, incorporeal things can move freely through these open barred windows. Right, so now I'm getting more. Okay, the very loud television and the windows. Now then, what else besides a smell can go both in and out of an open barred window? The answer is sound. So no matter how careful the killer was, if the windows were open, the jig would be up. And since the windows in both defendant lobby number 1 and the hallway were open, that explains how the sound of a gunshot could be heard in both locations. So gunshot could be heard, windows were open, so the gunshot could be heard, but where did it originate from? Here we go. Clever. The missing piece of evidence is a video that shows the moment in which Mr. Rell killed the embassy staff member. The sound of the gunshot left quite an impression on me when it was played during the trial. The video should have been returned to Mr. Faraday's evidence bag for the recess, and brought back here. If it disappeared after that time, then it's possible that the tape is still here in this room. Eureka! The missing evidence, created for me, is the gunshot sound that no one should have been able to hear in the first place. Miles, what have you been thinking about? Stop wasting time thinking and let's start looking again. It's not a waste of time to think, for I have figured out where we should look. And where would that be? I believe we should examine the television. The TV? Well, you kids have fun. Go ahead and examine whatever you like. Okay. I won't rest until I've inspected every suspicious nook and cranny. So I'll examine this first. It's a video player, and there seems to be a videotape inside. It looks like it. The tape must have stopped on its own when it reached the end. This tape, could it not be the missing surveillance tape? I suppose, but... Detective Bad, would it be alright for you, or with you, if I verified the contents of this video? Sure, knock yourself out. Alright, then let's rewind this and see what we have. If I remember correctly, the footage of Rell killing the embassy staff member should be about the 30-minute mark from the start of the tape. Understood. This should be about right. Now then, let's see. This is the footage of Mr. Rell shooting the embassy staff member. I knew it. The missing piece of evidence, the surveillance video, was here all along. Wait, so those two must have already been dead. Yeah. That would explain why... everybody, well, not everybody. Callisto was very adamant about not disturbing Faraday and Rell and she was saying he took Rel into the defendant lobby number 1, number 2 even, to, I don't know, to do whatever, and said they must not be disturbed. Oh. And this must have been playing from the beginning. Okay. This sound. What's the meaning of this? It appears that Detective Bad has figured out the true source of the gunshot he heard. With this, I think we can figure out the trick behind this double murder. Do you mean that you've figured it all out then? Yes, all I have to do now is show what the gunshot detectives Bad and Gumshoe heard was, and through where they heard it from. Fine, in that case, show me what you've deduced. Okay, I deduced the open window. Now, to show what the gunshot detectives Bad and Gumshoe heard was, and through where they heard it from. Okay, so, the window, deduce it, because it's open. Is this spot somehow connected to any of the evidence I hold? 'Tis indeed, to the surveillance tape. Eureka! If the door and windows to the crime scene, namely this room that we are in, were closed, the killer could have used the gun and no one would have been the wiser. That's true. This cart house does seem to be well designed for such a thing, as it were. However, what happened in reality was, Detective Gumshoe, Detective Bad, and Miss Yu, all three of them heard the gunshot, while the windows in lobby number 2, and the hallway were open. So naturally, the people in those locations could hear it. But then, why would the criminal open the window in the first place? To allow the gunshot to be heard, I suppose? Correct. That's the only logical conclusion we can draw from this. But why was that necessary in the first place? I want a real answer, Miles, and demand satisfaction. Very well, I believe that the killer wanted to manipulate our perception of a certain fact. What was it the killer wanted to manipulate our perception of when the crime took place? The killer wanted to fabricate the time of death to their precise wishes, and they used the gunshot in the surveillance video to do so. So that's why the tape was left running. You mean, the gunshot I heard was from this video? Yes, which means that the murders really occurred at an earlier time than we thought. It must have been during the recess, but before Detective Gumshoe was on guard duty. Someone who has no alibi for that time period, and planned this crime out in advance. That person is the real killer. I think we know who it is! Oh yeah. Mr. Edgeworth. Yes, what is it? Miss Yu is asking for you. She's in the courtroom. She says that she's identified the murderer, but that she wants to clarify something. Looks like Miss Yu is still investigating something. Understood? Please tell her that I will be right over. I'll come along. I want to hear what she has to say. It would appear that the time has come to uncover the truth. To be continued, of course. Awesome. Love it. This might be a fairly, lengthy trial or session, but I don't care. I like to record this game in segments. I don't like to finish a trial and then start another. Finish a case and then start another mid-session. Save! Awesome. But it is weird just how short this game seems to be. Kind of. I don't know, I just think the pacing for the trials is much faster. For the cases. Oh. There she is. Oh, it's Kay. Kay, what are you doing here? Oh, hello, mister. I'm still investigating. But the object you're looking for has already... Kay, don't mind him. Please continue with your investigation. Okay, you got it. Detective Bad, haven't we already found what we were looking for? If it means I can keep her in the dark just a little longer, any little task will do. Oh, you're more sympathetic than I thought. Wait, we're actually doing this as if it was a trial. What? It's a bit weird. Alright, whatever. I've been waiting for you, Edgeworth. I've also been waiting for the moment in which we can finally lay this case to rest. The moment in which we can finally lay this case to rest. Wasn't that when we placed Detective Gumshoe under arrest? I think we've more than solved this case already. Don't you? We'll see. It all depends on whether or not your logic holds. Oh, I see we even have a viewer in the gallery. And why, even Mr. Bed is here. A viewer in the gallery? I'm hardly just a bystander. I have a duty to see this case through to the end. No matter how it turns out. Oh, is that right? Anyway, I thought you might like to hear what I've slaved away to find out. I've taken statements on every single person's movements. During the time when our suspect was in the hallway, I've also confirmed that there is no possible route of escape from lobby number 2. Therefore, the killer must without a doubt be Detective Gumshoe. And that's all you have? Yeah, that's all there is to my conclusion and this case. Sorry, but I beg to differ. In a trial, there is always time for a rebuttal, and we are standing in a court of law. It'd be more than appropriate to follow the rules of court in this case, don't you think? How absolutely like a rookie to think such a thing. But alright, I'll play along and give you a proper testimony. If my logic is correct, then I've already won. All I have to do now is to prove it, by showing who the real killer is. Misuse argument. Everyone since the suspect has an alibi for when the gun went off. Furthermore, the areas around the crime scene have all been thoroughly investigated, right? I also confirmed that there is no possible escape route from lobby number 2. Which leaves us with one unshakable conclusion, that Detective Gumshoe is the killer. Really? Now that you have your testimony, I expect a good rebuttal, Edgeworth. But of course. There is no need to confront her logic head-on right now. I should instead focus on drawing out any trump cards she has up her sleeves. Or sleeve. Basically, press everything. Misuse argument. The suspect? But I thought that Detective Gumshoe's alibi has already been proven. Are you joking, Edgeworth? I assure you, this is no joke. Look, I know you heard from the judge earlier that the detective was in the hallway with Mr. Faraday's daughter eating a Swiss roll. Yes, that is correct. But see, that was 20 minutes before the real gunshot went off, right? And the problem is, there's no one else who can corroborate what he did since the snaking. I see she's done her research well. Which means that I should focus on drawing out whatever trump card she's withholding. There we go. Woo! Whether they have been thoroughly investigated or not is for me to decide. The scrunched eyebrows and lines on your forehead are back. Fairhead. I'm pronouncing so many words weirdly. Anyway, even if you believe it, has it been exhaustive? Crime scene, lobby number 2, has no way out other than the hallway Detective Gumshoe was standing in. But because he claimed to be there, that makes him the only possible suspect. But isn't it also possible that someone escaped through a window and into the garden? That's the first place everyone looked, silly. The police aren't a bunch of lazy bums. They looked into every possibility, you know? Isn't that right, Mr. Bad? Yeah. There wasn't a scrap of evidence to suggest someone used one of the windows. There also weren't any footprints or anything in the courtyard garden. I suppose they really did check everything that could be relevant to the case. Well done! I also confirmed that there is no possible escape route from lobby number 2. Are you absolutely positive that there are no possible routes of escape? Of course I'm sure. And why are you so certain? This is a courthouse, the place where criminals are brought to be judged. If there was an escape route, I'm sure every criminal would be using it to escape. It's just common sense. Mr. Edgeworth. Miles Edgeworth, I suggest you use a bit more of it in the future. Oh dear. God. Point taken. Unshakable conclusion, Detective Gumshoe's the killer. Yeah, no. You may think it's unshakable, but to me, there are still too many unanswered questions. For example, who was it that placed the gun in Mr. Faraday's hand? But you're the only one still wondering that. Detective Gumshoe probably had no idea which hand Mr. Faraday used to write with. Even if you know someone, it doesn't mean you'll know which hand they write with, right? I mean, I certainly don't care about that sort of thing. I'm not about to let her get a rise out of me with such a flippant statement. I suppose we've really reached the end now. I already have my trump card ready. All that remains is to play it. But before I do, I think I should inquire into a little something about her argument. You said earlier that you confirmed the alibis of every person other than the suspect. However, I don't recall either Franziska or myself speaking with you about the subject. But there were witnesses. For you, there is your mentor who gave you an alibi. I see. As for the little Missy, she came to the courthouse during the recess, and was stopped by a security guard at the doors of the hallway. She gave him quite a whipping for that, or so I heard. I'm the daughter of Manfred von Karma. I will not be forcibly stopped by a guard, or a bailiff, or anyone else. Wait, so basically the only reason Franziska bothered to show up today was because she found out that I was to be the replacement prosecutor. By the way, Miss Yu, what about everyone's alibis before Detective Gumshoe was assigned to guard duty? What about them? Have you looked into what people were doing during that span of time? What kind of idiot do you take me for? It doesn't matter when the killer went into lobby number 2. From the time we heard the gunshot, to the time Mr. Bad and I arrived on the scene, as we dashed from lobby number 1, the only person who could have committed the crime was Detective Gumshoe. Yes, let's talk about when you and Detective Bad heard that gunshot, shall we? I suppose that if we go by your logic, then Detective Gumshoe is the only one. However, what if the crime had occurred at an entirely different time than when that gunshot you heard went off? What then? That gunshot was a trap meant to manipulate our perception of when the crime actually took place. Sadly, your explanation is very lacking, Edgeworth. The gunshot we heard in lobby number 1, care to explain how that could have been fabricated? Easy. A crystal clear gunshot that was recorded. There you go. That tape! Yes, it's exactly what you think it is. This is the surveillance tape of Mr. Rell, the prosecution presented in today's trial. This was found loaded into the video player in lobby number 2. That was connected to the large television that had its volume turned all the way up. You can't honestly mean that the sound we heard was the gunshot in the video. But I do, which leads me to my next point. The murders occurred much earlier than when anyone heard the gunshot. That's the only thing I can think of too. After committing double murder, or double homicide, the killer took the surveillance video out from Mr. Faraday's evidence bag, turned the television volume all the way up, and left the video to play. If played from the beginning, it would take 30 minutes for the gunshot sound to come on. And since we now know that this method of time manipulation is possible, it opens up the possibility that the killer is someone other than Detective Gumshoe. Sounds from a television doesn't amount to much here. But of course, Mr. Prosecutor Edgeworth and Little Miss Von Karma already knew that much from the very beginning, right? Of course we knew. Didn't we, Miles? Yes, of course. We know about the soundproof quality of the courthouse's rooms. Of course, I'm not about to admit we had no idea until only a little while ago. That's right, and if the rooms are soundproof, then we should not have been able to hear it. And yet we heard the gunshot clear as day. And that's it, end of story. But it's not. How should I explain why she was able to hear a gunshot from a soundproof room? The door was open. There was a hole in the wall. No, the window was open. Duh. There is actually one common point between lobby number 1 and lobby number 2. And the hallway, actually. And it is that despite the fact that both rooms have air conditioners installed, a window was opened in each. Oh! Now we know that the window in lobby number 2 was opened by the killer. However, a window in lobby number 1 was also opened. God, I hate the way she says objection. It's probably just coincidence that they were both open at the same time, or at the time. It was no mere coincidence, I assure you. Why was the window opened in lobby number 1? The answer is that a certain person did something to cause a window to be opened. And the person who triggered that action, that person is the real guilty party. The real killer in this double murder is, of course, this bitch. Miss Callisto Yu. I hereby formally indict you of the murder of Mr. Faraday and Mr. Rell. What? You indict me? Oh damn, she smudged her lipstick. Are you serious, Miles? Why do you think she is the killer? I don't understand her motive just yet. But of course I'm serious. Because she is the only one who could have done it. Well, Miss Yu, do you still feel like left